feel that pseudoscience and misinformation has been allowed to permeate our culture to the degree that it has because we don't stomp it out, because we don't aggressively call out liars and charlatans.
Hello and welcome to the Wiser Tomorrow podcast. Today I'm here with Dave Farina of the YouTube channel Professor Dave Explains. Dave has been making educational videos across a range of topics and disciplines for many years, with a focus on the physical and life sciences. Dave's channel has also featured debates, panel discussions, and video responses to flat earthers, climate change deniers, creationists, and many others in an attempt to combat scientific misinformation. Dave has also even published a book on this topic titled Is This Wi-Fi Organic? A Guide to Spotting Misleading Science Online, which is currently discounted until January 31st through the publisher, and which will be linked in the description for those viewing this episode on YouTube. So again, Dave, I've watched your video for many, many years leading up to this conversation, so it's quite cool to be sitting here with you today, and thanks for coming on.
Yeah, happy to be here.
So I know you have a playlist in your channel called Ask Professor Dave, where you cover some of the most frequently asked questions of the people that your own audience asked about your personal life, but for those who may not have seen those videos or may not be familiar with your content in general, if you could just briefly walk us through who you are and how you got here today, that'd be great.
Sure. Yeah. I guess the shortest version would be I studied chemistry in school, and I through my 20s I was teaching a lot of chemistry, and then I had the idea to start a YouTube channel mainly based around I was teaching OChem at a university. And I recorded my lectures. I basically just performed my lectures to camera and made a little channel and put them online and just to kind of see what would happen, see if I could get some passive income. And they were received really well. So then I started making more content in a variety of other topics. And fast forward 7 years, full-time science communicator and YouTuber. And this is what I do. And it's been a lot of fun.
And from my understanding, your main goal from the beginning was pursuing music, and this is something that you started just as a way to get some passive income on the side. So in the past with interviews I've seen, you've been a little bit more, it seems like this has just been a means to an end, and still ultimately music is the main goal. Do you feel the same way today, or are you becoming more passionate about this whole project?
Yeah, I mean, art still is the main goal, but I am really thrilled to have this science communication career and certainly will never abandon it. I take it very seriously, and I feel a sense of duty to continue with it. So I will definitely be a science communicator for a very long time, for the foreseeable future. Definitely, however, the goal has always been art, and I think this year, go 2023, I'm going to try to pivot to some extent to at least split my time with music and writing and other passions of mine. And
all of that will be linked in the description as well on YouTube and anywhere else I can link it. So definitely go check that out. So I wanted to ask, you mentioned I think you were involved in 3 different master's programs before you completed the third one in science education. And the first one was in synthetic organic chemistry. And I've talking to a lot of guests recently specifically about the graduate school system and all of its problems, essentially. So I wanted to ask, what was it that pushed you away from completing that first master's program? Was it something bureaucratic, just a distaste for the academic system, or chemistry related?
Yeah, the first time I never wanted to, I wasn't interested in doing it at all in the first place. I went to grad school straight out of undergrad. It was just something to do. I wanted to move to California, but I felt like I needed a purpose or a reason, so I applied to graduate schools in California. I got accepted to UC Santa Cruz. I just wanted to play music. I thought, hey, I'll be on a campus. I'll meet musicians. I can TA, so that's a job. So I had zero interest in pursuing science seriously as a career. It was just sort of like, when you're young, like you go to elementary school, middle school, high school, college, grad school, it's just the next rung on the ladder. And I was a little bit too anxious or apprehensive to just move to California. So I just said, all right, I'll go to that school. And I joined a band immediately, like within 2 weeks, but they weren't students, they were townies. And they around March or April of my first school year, they said, hey, we're all moving up to San Francisco. So that's what's happening. And I was like, okay, I'll quit school because what am I doing anyway? I want to play music. And it was kind of like the biggest local band, the biggest Santa Cruz band, which at the time I thought was really cool. We were playing at the Catalyst, the venue in town, and we were opening up for like Los Lobos and like Dean Ween's Moist Boys. And like, I was like, this is the coolest thing ever. I thought it was so great. So, I had nothing holding me there. So I just quit. Yeah.
And where is your musical interest today? Are you still looking to be in a band, to front a band, to do solo work? What is the ideal goal there?
Yeah, so now I have my own project. I'm sort of too old to, all through my 20s, I was in a bunch of different bands. And then I was in one band called The Lonely Wild, which got fairly successful. We were signed and touring and everything. And once that one didn't work, I was in my early 30s. And I just thought, all right, I'm too old to like start at the bottom anymore. So I knew I needed to get some income going, because the main problem we faced was that you need so much money for music videos and recording and publicity and all these things. And I just thought, I'm not going to do this the cheap way anymore. I'm going to make my own money to do all this stuff on my own. So now that things are a little bit different financially, I've been sort of cultivating my own project. I put out an EP 3 years ago, before the pandemic. The pandemic kind of put a wrench in things, but it's my own project. I write everything and hire players, and it's very, I guess, synth rock is the easiest way to describe it. A little bit progressive, a little bit psychedelic, a little bit, pretty groovy stuff. And I write the songs and track everything myself except guitars. I don't know how to play guitars, so I don't play that. But definitely looking to focus heavily on the live aspect. So hopefully by the middle of this year, I'll be playing out, have the players and be playing out. So.
And how on earth do you have enough time to do as many videos as you do and all of the musical things combined, especially if you're shifting focus to music? It seems like you get more done in a day than is possible.
I sleep very little. I probably sleep maybe 5 hours a day, and work relentlessly. I'm a workaholic. So, the idea was to backlog about a year's worth of content on the channel so that I could pivot completely to art and be continuing to release content for a year without doing any work. I was getting along pretty well with that. I was about 4 or 5 months ahead, but then we bought our first house. We're expecting our second child, so we kind of upgraded, got a house, and then in order to do that, I took this really big contract with a company called Chegg. So it's a lot of content for them privately, for an amount of money that was going to really help, with the renovations and buying new furniture and all this stuff. So I had to say yes to that contract. So I've been working on that for like 2 months and not doing really anything on the channel. So that has kind of eaten into my backlog. But as soon as I finish this contract, which I'm almost done, I'm going to get back to backlogging. And so hopefully, again, I can get, 6 to 9 months ahead on the channel so I can pivot and focus on art. I'm actually converting the garage to a rehearsal recording studio, so I can, tinker in there all day and, maintain the channel, but definitely sort of do both.
I wanted to ask you about some of that because, there's such a spectrum of how much money people are making, the different revenue streams people have. And what I guess is nice in the case of your content is it's sort of evergreen. I mean, I think they will never stop accumulating views. There's no time at which people don't have to stop learning ionization energies and so on and so forth. So I guess that's only going to get easier for you in the future?
Educational content is the ultimate evergreen content. Every year, millions of new people have to learn chemistry and physics and math and biology and all these things. So, my AdSense revenue has I'm 7 years in. I'm finally starting to see the signs of plateauing. The AdSense revenue grew only, I think, like 25% in 2022 from 2021, whereas previously it was growing by like 300% every, just like insane growth every year.
Wow. So
it's starting to really plateau a little bit, but still the amount of passive income is very enviable. I mean, it was a big time investment. I have over 1,200 tutorials. I've been working on this for 7 years. So it was definitely a huge time investment, but it was very, very worth it because now, I could essentially retire on the AdSense revenue, barring any major changes over at YouTube, which I don't think is going to happen. Google's pretty stable, but that was the plan. I mean, that really, around 2016 was when I started to really take the channel seriously. And I kind of made that projection based on going on socialblade.com and looking at the few really successful educational channels that existed at the time, like Crash Course and Khan Academy, things like that. And, I had that moment where I really looked at what they were earning, and I couldn't believe it. I mean, my jaw dropped when I saw what they were earning. There wasn't as much traffic on YouTube, but there's also way less competition. It wasn't so saturated. So these handful of educational channels were really getting an incredible viewership. And so I thought, well, why can't I do that? I think I could do that. Let's try it out. Let's see if I invest 5 years of my life into this. What's going to happen? How far can I get? And I was exactly right. It took about 5 years before it took about 4 years before I could I was like getting rent and bills. And then another year after that, it was quite a bit more. And now it's quite a bit more than that. So it's been an unbelievable amount of work. I'm totally burnt out. My brain has changed. I'm a complete workaholic now. I basically have no ability to relax. Even on vacation, I bother my wife so much because I'm constantly like checking things and doing things. I just can't like stop ever now. But I'll trade that because my life has fundamentally, completely changed, and I have all of this additional freedom and possibilities in front of me because I chose to do that. So yeah.
Well, big congratulations on doing that. As you said, that was a very, very wise decision. And so being so burnt out, but having so much more potential content still to make, how much more do you expect you will put out?
I mean, the goal is to cover every single academic subject, science or otherwise. I've begun branching out into non-science. So, I mean, there's so much left to do. I mean, I have about a dozen topics in the works currently. Let alone what I could hit in the next couple of decades. So, I mean, my current production, model is pretty good because it's like a level of sophistication with the production where people find it pretty palatable to watch. It's better, it's easier to watch than kind of the blackboard style written tablet learning. But it's obviously not Crash Course. It's not like crazy animated, but it's nice looking, but it's so simple that I can basically do everything by myself with a lot of effort. But, I can kind of crank out the content quite rapidly compared to, like a Cures Cassat. Like that's unbelievable amount of work.
Totally different.
And they get the views they deserve for it. I'll never get those kind of views, but also, I make a video in 1/100th the time and effort of theirs. So it balances out.
Sure. So a few follow-up questions to that. The first is, how much of this do you already know, like where you can sit down and essentially just create the video from knowledge in your head, or how much of it do you pull out the textbook and essentially put the chapter in your own words?
Almost none of it anymore because, I mean, unless it's chemistry, well, even, I mean, I'm doing inorganic, organometallic chemistry content right now, and so I am writing those, but I'm referring to notes from grad school. I had a great inorganic chemistry course in grad school, and so I'm working out of those notes. It's not fresh off the top of my head. I took that course, a decade ago, so... and so, I mean, at the beginning, like really the only stuff that was truly off the top of my head was my OChem lectures. My organic chemistry lectures, I literally performed from memory as though I was teaching the course. So that was right off the top of my head. Everything else, I was, actually, sadly, my general chemistry content also was written off the top of my head in the tour van, which I now regret because there are errors in there that are embarrassing, and I'm very ashamed. But at the time, my channel was nothing. I mean, I had no idea how many that these videos would get millions of views. I had no idea. So I was like, yeah, that's about right. And I was like, oh my God, I can't believe it. But after that, I started to, take it a lot more seriously and really, reference everything. So, I mean, the ones that I wrote myself were like biochemistry, biology, math, physics. This is stuff that I did study in undergrad, and found that, I think I'm pretty good at explaining this. Then I pushed it a little further. I even did like anatomy and physiology and biopsychology, again, referring to textbooks. Definitely, I'm not like trying to do anything crazy. This is 101 style stuff. But I did that myself, and then eventually I got to the point where I thought I'm bringing in enough revenue that I can hire writers, I can hire grad students to write the scripts. So zoology, botany, immunology, psychology. All these other topics, why take the time to try to teach myself this stuff when I can just hire somebody who's already an expert, pay them a rate per page, and get the scripts, and hire a consultant, check everything, have them look at the animations when I'm done, make sure everything is accurate. But so that's been more my model now for the past couple of years, just as I've more or less exhausted the topics that I know about. Apart from chemistry, I am expanding into more advanced chemistry topics. But so that's how it goes right now for the academic tutorials, at least. Yeah.
Well, in terms of the content that might not be quite as evergreen, but certainly seems to perform really well, is essentially anything you put out combating scientific misinformation. I mean, all of those videos do get hundreds of thousands, if not millions of views. And it's been impressive, honestly, how... Yeah. I'm not sure how best to put it. You've been very... selective with where you've chosen to address these sorts of topics, where it must be tempting to put out video after video on that topic and frankly rake in the cash from doing so.
Yeah, I don't want to. Yeah, obviously you're referring to Flat Earth. I've done more Flat Earth debunks than I wanted to. Mainly, I mean, usually I get dragged in. I mean, that's how I got dragged into it. It wasn't a choice of mine. It was a response to these idiots. But people like them, so I made a few of them. But I definitely, there's a certain there's a way I want my channel to be, and just debunking the dumbest pseudoscience imaginable every day that's not really what I want to be. But I like the debunking, and I want to do as much of it as possible. I want it to be balanced with my tutorial content. But I'm basically done with Flat Earth. I'm now going for bigger, larger threats than that one. So
one of my favorite videos, and I think one of the first ones I came across, may have been the one addressing alkaline water and just alkalized products and that type of thing, just because that's something I have family members who have bought into, and I hear all the time. It seems like there's more water on the shelf that's been alkalized and similar sort of products. And that seems like where your time might be best spent, because there's an endless list of them, and they are complete bullshit, complete and utter bullshit, but widely believed, so much more than something like Flat Earth.
Yeah, way more prevalent, obviously. I've tended to focus on specific characters, specific people and their fraudulence, but I do have some that go after these concepts, like quantum mysticism and these kinds of things. And even in those, I do try to highlight a few figures that I think are the main culprits. But it's sometimes I go after a way of thinking that I think is prevalent in society, and that is erroneous. And natural good, synthetic bad, that kind of stuff has always bothered me. So that's the aspect of science communication that I think is, definitely needed. Unfortunately, not everybody's going to go watch a playlist of chemistry tutorials, but they might watch a 30-minute video on, look at how silly this thing is that people believe, and then, oh no, maybe I, have thought that way in the past, and now I can correct my errors. It's a lot of fun. Hopefully I can do quite a lot more of that as well.
And I won't drag you back through the whole flat earther thing. I know you've been on many other podcasts and discussed it probably ad nauseum. But one thing I did want to comment on is I saw on the video, at least your upload of the video from about 8 months ago with David Weiss, you seem to receive a lot of criticism for sort of the tone you had throughout that conversation. And you addressed it in your pinned comment and said, look, this guy is a charlatan. This is exactly what he deserves. He's not deserving of some more palatable conversation. So I just wanted to relate that more generally. Do you think that the aversion for confrontation, and I don't want to be one of those people that lingers on wokeness and PC culture and whatever, but you see what I'm getting at. Do you think the aversion for conflict has sort of allowed a lot of the scientific misinformation to persist?
I think so. Yeah. I mean, I get a lot of comments that are like, oh, you have different opinions, and, he has his own opinion. No, he doesn't have an opinion. He's a liar and a con man. Like, no. Yeah. I feel that pseudoscience and misinformation has been allowed to permeate our culture to the degree that it has, because we don't stomp it out, because we don't aggressively call out liars and charlatans. And I'll do debunks on people, whether they're creationists or whether they're these like fraud doctors who are peddling this crap that gets people killed, because they avoid real medicine and everything. These people are monsters, and you're gonna get mad at me because I'm a mean man and I call them nasty words. Like, are you out of your mind? Like, where's the prioritization? Where's the sense of urgency here about bigger issues? I'm a little salty and maybe a little rough with the language, but I speak to people how they deserve to be spoken to, and I describe people how they truly are. And I don't really care if it ruffles someone's feathers. This is urgent. If I'm using this language, if I'm using this tone, this is urgent. These people are lying. These people are toxic influences on society, and they need to be neutralized. And I'm going to call them like I see them. It's a disservice when you engage with someone who is a fraud or a liar, or peddling something blatantly pseudoscientific, and we treat it as a difference of opinion. When we're talking about evolution versus intelligent design or something like that, you do not talk about it as though it's two competing theories. It's science and pseudoscience, and you talk about it that way. You cannot give this false air of validity to these ideas. That is a disservice. That's much worse than calling these people frauds and charlatans, because they objectively are, and we need to use the correct language. Call a spade a spade, So that's how I operate.
No, I mean, needless to say, I couldn't agree more. I mean, I think people have lost sight of what an opinion is versus what a fact is, quite honestly, especially in anything scientific, where, as you said, people will say, oh, well, this is just the other stream of thought. It's really not. I mean, it's some outlier, baseless, and I agree. I really think frankly, I'm one of those people who I'm a relatively passive person, and I typically can't find the right words when I'm in the moment speaking with people. So I think that's why you are the perfect person to engage with these people, is you have a mastery of so many different topics, and you're willing to sort of get in there and put your foot down.
Call them out. Yeah, I'll be the hard head.
Yeah.
I'll be the attack dog. I'll be the ambassador for the scientific community that they need, not the one they asked for.
For sure. Well, we're all cheering you on, and I do want to address one more specific character in this sort of arc, which is Dr. James Tour of Rice University. And I find this one to be one of the most frustrating but strangest cases, because flat Earth is, take somebody like David Weiss. Like, he's in no position to be weighing in the first place. He doesn't really have, not that he doesn't have the degrees, but he has none of the things you would want to have in a person who's going to weigh in on these types of issues. The idea is completely,
he's one of the dumbest people alive. We can just say that.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Exactly. And in the case of James Tour, I mean, he is a serious scientist. He is a serious synthetic research chemist, and he's perfectly equipped to weigh in, if not contribute, on something like abiogenesis research. So, frankly, I consider it a little bit terrifying, because here's a person who there's just no basis for the stance that they hold. So, if for anyone who's listening and might not be familiar, if you could just sort of walk through that whole conflict.
Yeah. So he, I get sent a lot of, because I did like the Kent Hovind debate, and so I get a lot of people that are like, oh, creationism, intelligent design, et cetera, et cetera. Here's this guy saying this, here's this guy saying this, linking to various apologists. And so I got linked a bunch of times, dozens of times, to a couple of videos, one in particular from James Tour, where he's, I'm a synthetic chemist and I know about this, and this is ridiculous, and all of this research is crap, and, they're all lying, and they're corrupt, and look at this guy, Jack Shostak, and he's lying to you. It's ridiculous. And I was like, wow, this is intense. Who is this guy? And, so I looked a little bit, and it was like, this is, wow. I mean, he's being propped up by the Discovery Institute. That's the funny thing. I'm doing this series debunking all the Discovery Institute people. And none of them are actual researchers. Some of them never were. Some used to be scientists and now are apologists. They just write books and stuff. They don't actively do science. But they latched onto this guy, James Tour, because he's the only one. He's the only one in the entire ranks who is an actively publishing scientist. He is a real scientist, right? So he's just put on this enormous pedestal. Look, he's like the smartest guy in the history of time. And I looked at a couple of videos and I was like, all right, this is rubbish. And he's like really intense and really angry. And I was like, all right, no one is debunking this guy. Nobody is like really actively, no one from in the scientific community, which is, I think, a shame. I think some people should be stepping up. I think a couple tried to, and he just sort of like, Nick Matsky tried to, go over to his office and explain evolution to him. And he was like, no, thanks. I decline. And, so I was like, all right, I'll make a video, and I tried to be pretty soft with the tone. I genuinely wasn't really trying to ruffle too many feathers. I just wanted to take some of these talking points and explain how they're wrong. And it wasn't even just him. I was talking about creationist talking points against abiogenesis, mainly the ones he says, but then also dumber ones that he would never say because they're very dumb, although I had to retract that later because he then used some of them. So it's like, oh my God, I can't believe he said this stuff.
Of course.
But so I made a little video. It was like 40 minutes, Yeah, and he flipped out, and with the aid of Discovery Institute and all their editors and all the funding and everything, made this 13-part series about how dumb I am, and it was insane. Just like quote mining researchers, misrepresenting research, lying about basic chemistry, just like a parade, just a complete Dunning-Kruger farce. It was unbelievable. And then, so I obviously had to respond. So I made a 2-part series, just going through that series and exposing all of it as ridiculous to show how ridiculous it was. Because the problem is, because he understands chemistry, he can use chemistry speak to sort of dazzle the viewer and go, "Look how smart I am! Look at all this crazy synthesis stuff. You think that happened by itself?" And his followers just go, "Oh wow, he's really smart. He sounds like he knows what he's talking about," and just blindly believe everything. They understand nothing. They don't understand a word he's saying, and they come over to my channel. "He's the best guy ever." I'm like, dude, you have no clue what he's talking about. So I made that series, and I think he really, really, really underestimated me because the response was really devastating, and I think it really hurt his feelings and was a pretty big blow to the ego. He didn't do much for a while. It's been like a year and a half, I think. I don't know how long it's been, but they got a lot of views. So a lot of people saw exactly how dishonest and quite frankly, ignorant he is. It's not just that he's a liar. He really genuinely does not understand many aspects of the field of origin of life research, because it's not synthetic chemistry. There's geochemistry and astrochemistry and systems chemistry. He doesn't even know what systems chemistry is. I mean, he tries to use the word autocatalysis and uses it incorrectly and stuff. And he really doesn't know about it. And he's avoiding it. He's specifically avoiding learning about it. He's smart enough to learn about it. If I can learn about it, he can learn about it. But when I read the papers, I'm trying to understand it. He's trying to find ways to discredit it, which he can't because it's science. So he has to go into cognitive dissonance mode and, try to shelter himself from this science he doesn't like. And so it's been a while, and no, he's finally back at it, and he's putting out more videos. Ironically, not so much about me, but about scientists that I had featured in that series. Just as though he doesn't have to respond to the 50+ papers that I showed that prove him wrong. But so yeah, he's doing more content, and which is great. I get to do more content showing how even dumber he. I mean, like the first series was pretty ridiculous. This stuff is, it's kind of jaw-droppingly ridiculous. Like he continues to try to take some kind of high road, but he's like showing clips of me like from music videos and stuff, and I'm just like, What are you doing? What are you doing, James? It's astounding to see with all of this content. Like he used to be just this scientist that had these weird views, and now he's like, he's a joke. He's a joke at Rice. He's a joke to scientists, and I'm having a lot of fun pushing his buttons and pushing him closer and closer, I think, to a mental breakdown. But so yeah, I'm excited for him to finally finish this other series. I'll put out a nice I don't know how long, couple videos. I think it'll be a little shorter just because he's kind of not saying anything new almost at all. So I'll just be like, hey, I debunked that already. Remember? I debunked that already. Remember? So look out for that in a month or two. I don't know how long whenever he's done.
And I actually reached out to him along when I reached out to you, not to coordinate any conversation or something, but just to get the chance myself to push him on some of these things. I mean, again, I'm far from the most equipped person to do it, but I do have my own background in chem. I could at least try to get basic answers to, because as you say in your own videos responding to him, he simply doesn't address much of the criticisms. And then he has the same talking points. And, you know, one that comes to mind is how there's no explanation for glucose. How could glucose be synthesized? And you point out, you know, well, maybe enzymes evolved first. And there's just very fundamental things like that just, you know, right over the head. And I'm torn is whether, because he must know, he must hear these things. Do you think he's just dishonest? Is it just a financial gain thing, or is it's just cognitive dissonance? He's a creationist for as long as he's been alive, and he's not willing to come to terms with it.
I think all three. It's hard to say. I'm not a psychologist. He obviously knows he's being dishonest when he takes text from a paper and cuts part out of it and takes it out, you know, like the stuff with Matt Powner. Like, he's pretending that Origin of Life researcher is debunking Origin of Life research. It's like, how dumb do you have to be to think that this is saying this? So obviously the tactics are so unbelievably manipulative that it's impossible to think he is not at least somewhat cognizant of what he's doing. But with these kinds of fundamentalists, liars for Jesus is the perfect way to put it. And I think that there's some mentality of like, if I can lie, if it's for Jesus, if it's for the good of the faith and everything. And so, you know, Behe and Myers, you know, all these guys, you know, Luskin, the other guys I'm debunking over for the DI stuff. I mean, it's such blatantly manipulative tactics. They must know they are doing it. But, you know, they think it's justified, and also money, right? I mean, James is now, I think that there has to have been some impact on his funding. All this activity has to have some kind of repercussion. I mean, he's a joke now. And so, I don't know. I mean, the DI obviously pays him, you know, I don't know how much, I don't know how often, but it's more than zero. You know what I mean? He's definitely being propped up. He's the only guy they have. He's the only real scientist they have. And so the stakes are high. I mean, he's getting humiliated by a YouTuber. They're not happy with this. They're not happy with what's going on with what I'm doing. So they're really pulling out all the stops, all the character assassination. You know, look at Dave in the music video, slap the guy, and he's evil. He's an evil Satan man. It's like, dude, how can anyone fall for this? It blows my mind. But luckily, the viewership he's getting right now is not that high. So I think not that many people are dumb enough to fall for this stuff, but definitely in the thousands or tens of thousands. So, and they're very vocal, and they still come over to my channel and go, James is right and you're wrong. I go, really? How? Be specific. Well, because he's a scientist and you're not. Yeah, but how am I wrong? Oh, well, he's smarter than you. Yeah, but be specific. How am I wrong? Well, you're mean. You're a mean butt. It's like, my God, you people are worse than flat earthers. They're the dumbest people. I can't even believe it.
No, because it's exactly like you said. They don't actually know anything. They're just, for whatever reason, they've just latched on to him. He comes across as the big science man, and he does have the accolades to boot. So I think that's enough for people. And I don't think he's converting anyone. I think it's just people who have always been this way, and he's just another character for them to sort of, like you said, yay for Jesus, whatever works.
Yeah, they're just desperately holding on to who they have already. I mean, the rest of the DI too, when they, you know, Gunter Beckley is putting out hit pieces on me based on my debunks of Luskin and Meyer, and it's just the same tactics. Look how mean this evil atheist Satan man is. Don't go look at his videos. Don't go see what he says. There's no point. He's an evil man. They're desperately clutching on to the last little bit of influence that they have, and I'm sort of prying their fingers off one by one, and it's really fun for me. I have to admit, it's incredibly satisfying to just be butchering them like this. Yeah.
Well, it's satisfying for viewers as well. It's sort of reminiscent of, 2014, 2016 YouTube, where this type of thing was completely ubiquitous across the platform. So I welcome its return very much.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to ask you, you mentioned you were more focused on addressing, like, there's no threat of flat earthers, making that the dominant opinion. It's never going to happen. Same thing with a lot of at least the more extreme side of creationism. But what do you see as some of the things that are most threatening today? I assume perhaps anti-vaxxing, that type of thing, but if you have any others.
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing. The more I do this, the more I see it as all one thing. Because those of us who are educated in the sciences, we have a very firm understanding of the compartmentalization of natural phenomena. So you have physics, and that studies this, and you have chemistry, and that studies this, and geology studies this, and astronomy studies this. To those who are not just ignorant of science, but anti-science, it's just science. And so, unfortunately, we don't really have the luxury of ignoring any particular science now. Like very recently, what I did was there was this guy lying about the James Webb Space Telescope proving the Big Bang is wrong, right? Big news. Everybody's, I have so many people. Did you hear the James Webb Space Telescope proves that the Big Bang didn't happen? No, it didn't. No, it didn't. At all, not even a little bit. And so I had to go and, debunk that a little bit and, definitely link to astrophysicists who have more to say about it. But the thing is, for somebody who is ignorant of all science and anti-science, they go, oh, those lying scientists about the Big Bang, and they're lying about the vaccine, and they're lying about the climate. It's all one thing. They think that science is like 20 dudes in white coats in one room doing all the science together. And so there's no compartmentalization for them. So unfortunately, yes, I know that lies about climate and lies about medical stuff are much more urgent than lies about cosmology or lies about, Bible stuff or whatever, that kind of a thing. But it's not received that way to the general public. To them, any area in which they can be receiving a message that science is lies and corruption will ripple into any other area of science. And so, yes, we're definitely right now seeing a very extreme spike in vaccine hesitancy or anti-vax mentality, which is completely unfounded and completely based on lies on the internet. Just look at all these deaths. What deaths? What are you talking about? Someone told you that and you believed them. That's what's going on right now. And that is much more urgent. But I really believe that somebody can go, oh, scientists are lying about space, so they're lying about this, and think it's all one thing. So it's really all must be addressed. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. No, I definitely agree, and I've heard you in previous podcasts talk about it or sort of frame it as an anti-establishment issue more than anything, and I would completely agree. Because I have close friends who have their degrees in mathematics and physical sciences and so on, people who are totally equipped to see through all of this, and yet they still don't. And it's just the only explanation, and that they are, sort of openly anti-establishment in other ways. And I think that is the root problem. So how do you have any feelings about how to address that?
I think what I like to do is, I mean, if you can show someone how something is wrong, how something is a lie, and then sort of articulate the framework with which someone can have constructed that or have come to fall for that, they can sort of see their own bias. They can. It's like putting a mirror up to someone's bias, and hopefully, if they're a mature person, they can kind of they can see that and they can adjust a little bit. Because a lot of these people like to profess themselves as skeptics or rational, or they like to do all the research and look at everything. But unfortunately, they're not skeptical. They're not skeptical of the sources that they're biased towards. Right? Somebody told me something on the internet that checks out. Right? That's good enough for them, as opposed to what science knows to be true. I mean, we're talking about things as utterly trivial and basic as the existence of pathogens. We're seeing a resurgence in terrain theory, or the denial of bacteria and viruses, that they even exist at all. There's so many people who think that viruses don't exist. It's insane. It's insane. And, I mean, yeah, it's hard to know exactly how to approach someone that is in that has that level of denial of reality. But you can, you can try. I mean, one thing I'll do is I'll bring up these guys, Andrew Kaufman, Andrew Wakefield, these guys, and I'll show the con. Right, I'll pull the curtain up and show the con. Here are the lies. Here's how they're making. Here's exactly how they are making money from this. Right. And so, hey, you hate people making money off of lies. Here's a guy making money off of lies. It's not a big pharmaceutical pharmaceutical company. It's one guy, but he's lying to make money. All right. Pharma, we can talk about pharma too. Good things, bad things, whatever but let's talk about it for real. Let's really talk about it. Not pharma's hiding the cure for cancer. It's ridiculous. That's ridiculous. So my angle is to just debunk to smithereens the conspiracy theories and expose the frauds for who they are. You're never going to get them all. You're never going to get 100%. You're never going to convert. You're never going to convert 50%. If I can convert 10%, there will be a trickle effect. They'll speak in their personal circles and explain this stuff to people. But yeah, you just try and you do your best and just put it all out there. I put it all out there as very matter-of-factly and succinctly as possible, and hope for the best. That's it. So.
Yeah, I would completely agree. And it does seem like there's been a resurgence in people trying to actively address this and make videos, make podcasts, whatever it is, have the conversations with family members. So I'm optimistic, cautiously optimistic, that we are slowly but surely going to trend back the other way. Fingers crossed, too early to say for now. But another big piece of the puzzle that's missing that I'm sure you'll agree with is just scientific literacy, period. I mean, I think the educational system has lost sight of the point of having students take chemistry, biology, physics, etc. I mean, I guess broadly speaking, there's two purposes. One is to encourage students to pursue it at a higher level in the future and enter the workforce as chemists and physicists and engineers. But probably more importantly is to have every student leaving high school with a basic understanding of physical reality, so that they understand when they go to reach and grab the door, just the basic drawing a force diagram of how that's happening and the atoms and molecules that compose it and so on. So do you see any significant need for educational reform? Yeah. How would you like to see things changed?
So it's a very hard question to answer. It's a great question. It's hard to answer because I did receive that education. I did receive that education in high school. I went to a public school. It was a very good public school in Fairfield County, Connecticut. So it's an affluent area. But I got that public education, and I took bio, 2 years of chem and physics. And then I went to college ready. I tested out of intro chem and was a chem major, and it was all just a seamless thing. I felt that I got that education, and I subsequently, I did finish a master's in science education, and so I'm fairly familiar with science curricula and how they are implemented into the public school system, and I think that they are good curricula. Obviously, you have low-income areas, and you have places where the teachers aren't good, and they don't have the resources, and so some students just get the short end of the stick, and they don't get that education. And I think that that's an issue of budget. I think that obviously I would love to get to restructure the federal budget, and, take some money out of defense and put it into education. I don't know. I mean, I'm not an expert in this, but I don't know that we need large-scale educational reform in the sense of curricula restructuring, because they're there, they're good, and when they're implemented properly, students learn. I mean, not everybody wants to be a scientist, and that's fine. So I don't know. I don't know how to fix this the schools that aren't doing it right. That's hopefully someone can figure that out. We can appoint someone to cabinet positions that aren't imbeciles and actually can do something in their position. Yeah, maybe the other aspect is cultural. And so we are seeing a little bit of a popularization of science, right? Nerdiness being cool and things like that. It's a little bit memeified, which bothers me. And so it's not perfect, but it's better than nothing. It's certainly better than when I was a kid. When I was a young kid, it was not cool to be nerdy and not cool to know things. Now it's better. It is cool to know things, certainly to an extent, or at least, I've lived in a few places in the country, and that's my sense of it. That nerdiness is cooler than it once was, even in my lifetime. So I think we're on the right track. Like you, I'm cautiously optimistic, and in fact, a big part of what I do, or at least what I want to be a big part of what I do moving forward, is I do give talks at universities, sort of trying to get undergrads and grad students to warm up to the idea of SciComm as a career. So I give a talk. I talk about my path to science communication because it is still a very fresh field. It's a new field. But for very important reason, right? This is emerging because of the incredible problems that we're now having. We're seeing we're seeing the full impact of the internet on epistemology, on what a society thinks to be true or thinks they know to be true, and we in fact need an entire army of science literate professionals who are not busy doing science. Scientists are far too busy doing science to be to focus heavily on SciComm. A handful have done it, Carl Sagan obviously, and figures like that. But it would be much better if we had thousands of people who just that was their job, to sit around all day and figure out how to explain science to people and how to curb misinformation and make content to do so. So I go to universities and I talk about my path to SciComm, and I urge other students, if you are like me and you never found any kind of passion for work in the lab and never enjoyed it, and I only wanted to be an artist anyway. I only was doing it just to get the degree, but I think that there are a lot of people that find themselves in the lab as a grad student and go, you know what, I kind of don't really like doing this. Great, come to SciComm, right? Come over to this side. It's a lot of fun. You get to tell stories, and you get to do all kinds of fun things and make videos, or you make TikToks, or you're a journalist, there's so many ways to do it. There's so many ways to do it, and we need you. We really, really need you. We need a lot of people to join up and push back here, because this is a war. Whether you want to be part of it or not, or whether you acknowledge it or not, there's a war happening, and I see it to be as the biggest problem facing humanity right now, is us not being able to figure out how to get everybody to know what's true. And so that's why, although art is still kind of like the main goal for me, a big chunk of my passion has redirected towards this, just because I see how dire the circumstances are, and I feel a sense of duty because I feel I'm uniquely equipped to do it. I feel I'm very effective at it, and therefore must do it. So here we go.
No, I could not possibly agree more, and it's funny the way you laid all of that out, because that's almost exactly my experience. I finished my master's degree at the beginning of last year now, and I had the same feeling. I enjoyed it for what it was, but by the time it was over, I realized I'm not making the big breakthrough discovery. As great as this is, and as good as it is to get my hands dirty and get to those higher levels of knowing and knowledge, I realized that the big impact I could make was in science communication in one way or another. And this is one example of me trying to do that. And I hope to do many of the things you're alluding to. And I work, aside from doing this, I'm working as a freelance writer and consultant, and specifically in SciComm at every opportunity I can get. So for anyone listening who's in a similar boat, this is early in my sort of journey through doing all of this, but I can say with 100% confidence, I'm already very happy to be doing what I am. And as you said, we need a few thousand more people doing it, far better than certainly I will ever be at doing this. Yeah. And I think it's very literally enough to change the world pretty substantially. So could not agree more.
Let's go.
Yeah.
Yes,
yeah,
it can
exactly,
be done. A career in SciComm is achievable. Mm-hmm.
So, okay, so we're also coming up on an hour, so I don't want to get too deep in any other topics. So I'll ask you one final question, if that's all right with you, which is for somebody exactly the type of person we were just alluding to, what would be your one biggest piece of advice? Not necessarily leave your degree and go to SciComm, but for anybody interested in science, what is your piece of advice?
Oh, not to do? I mean, my advice would be go do SciComm, but I think try to think really hard about what it is that you want to do, and think about what you enjoy doing. Right? If you are that person that wakes up every morning and thinks, I can't wait to get to the lab because I'm going to finish that experiment and it's going to be awesome, and then I'm going to figure out the next thing I'm going to do, and I can't wait. This is my favorite thing ever. awesome. You're a scientist and you're going to go to be a scientist. Or maybe you go into academia and you have a passion for teaching. And I really enjoyed teaching, but ultimately it was not exactly what I wanted to do. But, if you think you're cut out for SciComm, what you're saying is that you're cut out for entrepreneurship. And that's a hurdle. That's a challenge. I find it to be very invigorating because I'm a workaholic. But you kind of need to be you need to be ready to invest a lot of time and a lot of effort, and you can't be discouraged by small hurdles like learning a new type of software or figuring out how to do, open your business bank account and like these kinds of things. You have to be ready to do a lot of stuff by yourself for next to no money at first. But if you can do it, you've got your own business, and then there's no cap. There's no cap on your income. I mean, it's like even a really a successful scientist. There's somewhat of a limit to how much you're going to make, and especially an entry level scientist. That's a good first job. But I've invested a certain portion of my time at this phase in my life, and I mean, we're talking about only 6-7 years for the dividends to really pay off. So, just get ready to work really hard, and as long as you're really passionate about what you're doing, it's probably going to work out to at least some degree, and then you don't have to have a whole life of being in a job that you don't want to do, which is pretty great. It's kind of the greatest thing to work for yourself and enjoy what you do.